So in this video, we are going to be looking at the performance development process section of your mandatory information. And for this one, there are two different sections within this that we need to talk about. The first of which is the approaches that we use to help us meet our performance development goals. So you need to be able to have a list of approaches that you know for each of the 4 factors. So the first one that Miss Gallagher is going to make a note of is the mental factor. Again, these are all approaches that we've done in class together. So the first one is your visualization. You then have your deep breathing, where we breathe in for 3 seconds and breathe out for 3 seconds. We have our pre-performance routine that you would have done in your badminton, trampolining and table tennis training programme. It was something that you developed on your own and you used to help prepare yourself for your full performance. Within the emotional factor, we can also use that visualization. So that's 2 factors that it's suitable for, as well as your deep breathing and as well as your pre-performance routine, which Miss Gallagher has shortened to PPR. In addition to these 3, I know that Miss Gallagher went through positive self-talk with those that were doing trampolining. For the social factor, there's a variety of different ones that we used, but we would encourage you to talk about team talks, team building activities, and these were all done within the netball and football block at the very beginning of the year, as well as the positive team ethos routine, which we are shortening to Peter. It was something where every member of your group was involved in having a team talk, whether that be before, during or after your performance. And we also spoke about using role models as an approach to develop our social factor. The one that we were talking about within the social factor was communication. Physical factor is probably the easiest one for you guys to think about. And there's a whole load of different ones that we used. But circuit training is one that we used in terms of developing our power in the last training programme. Shadow practice, repetition, conditioned games, full games, along with things like your target practice. Now there's loads and loads more that you could talk about. They're just the ones that we have done in class that you would be able to remember quite well. Now, questions that you might be asked. You might just be asked to identify some approaches that you use for each specific factor. You might also be asked to describe them. So that's given us as much detail about the approach as you possibly can. Remember our 4 bums on a rugby post. Okay, your who, what, when, where and how. And you might also be asked to evaluate. Okay, so that's our identify, give the value and then give the judgment. That's your structure for an evaluate question. Okay, and the second part of this section of your mandatory information looks at the production and implementation of your personal development plans. Okay, so you guys have had the experience of creating and implementing a PDP for all 4 factors. You've used those approaches and you've used the relevant performance development principles, which Miss Gallagher is going to start us with just now. So the first ones you need to know is your principles of training. So that's your sport, which leads you into your fit as well. So you've got your specificity, progression and overload, your rest to avoid reversibility, and as well as your tedium. Okay, now the P and the O, the progression and overload, lead us into our fit, which is our frequency, so the number of times you train a week, the intensity, how hard you work, as well as the time, how long you train for the training effect to take place. These will link into your stages of learning. So are you at the cognitive, the associative or the autonomous stage? Okay, they're the 3 stages of learning that we need to know about. Your approaches will fit into one of those 3 stages. Some of the approaches that you can use fit across 2 of the different stages. We also need to know our principles of effective practice. So that's our acronym for that is I was ACE. Your I was ACE stands for your intensity of practice,